Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm, and you are tuning in to episode 71, Category of One Clarity. So listen, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you pieces from a recent guest interview I did with Dr. Tiphany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. And I thought it would be valuable to share this interview really as a 2-part episode to unpack a bit about our philosophy over here at KLC, give a little insight into my industry perspective, and some background around my story. I really had a fun time chatting with Tiphany and sharing what it was like to transition from corporate America to consulting and now into the powerful coaching programs that I have the honor of leading with some of the industry's most ambitious, brilliant, and successful business owners and practice managers. And it was pretty awesome to take a minute to remember back some of the challenges I faced along the way and really thinking through the catalyst for igniting my passion to step into a category of one in my market and to be the partner and guide for other dynamic thinkers who are on a mission to disrupt the status quo. So in this week's episode, this part 1, really listen in for the following key points that you may be able to relate to. 1, how it's possible to achieve a business that's built on infrastructure that provides pleasure and happiness and a growth path that is an experience that you enjoy. Number 2, frustrations that you may have with the way certain models have been constructed. And then number 3, how to lean into your brand promise to differentiate your message in a saturated market. All right, leader, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi there. Welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go.
Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week, we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiphany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. We have another exciting guest this week to talk more about disrupting our industry and strategic growth. We have Kaylee Lindholm with us, who has her own consulting agency, but has spent a very long time in our industry really doing everything. She's carried the bag as a rep. She's been a sales manager. She's been a practice manager. She's grown brands, and now she's helping practices just like yours every day to change the game, if you will, and be a competitive disruptor. So we're here today with Kaylee. Welcome to our show.
Well, hello, Tiphany. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the other side of the table after getting the chance to interview you on the Fierce Factor podcast.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't hear that episode, she grilled me. It's pretty intense. So today we're going to do the same thing for her, all the hard-hitting questions here at For the Record. No, I'm just kidding. But Kaylee, you have really done everything in our industry. I feel like I'm kind of a maverick and do many, many things, but you've done all of it. So I'm going to rewind the tapes to the very beginning and walk us through how on earth this corporate giant tycoon person ended up here in aesthetics as a consultant working in practices every day.
Well, I would hardly call myself a corporate giant tycoon. I'm more of the reformed corporate ladder climber, I should say. But yeah, no, I started off, actually was hired before I graduated from college to work with Bayer Healthcare in the diabetes industry. And I took a sales position in Los Angeles. I'm from Southern California, born and raised, still live here. And working in diabetes, it was one of those types of environments where, one, working with Bayer, I learned a lot about corporate structure, big Fortune 100 company, I believe. And I also learned the nuances about dealing with insurances and with doctors who didn't really have the ability to treat patients, give them the best care that they could, and recommend the best products and services and medications because they had to take, insurance coverage. Through that process, as I was dealing with those frustrations, I got a call from someone in the aesthetic industry saying, you should come over to this company. They're launching a skincare line. And, I was like, what's aesthetics? I didn't even know about that. And they said, it's all cash pay. Everybody, all the doctors will just buy from you. You can sell skincare, whatever. And so that was it. I fell in love. I started working for a company to launch a skin lightening product. And then I saw the laser reps making a ton of money. And I decided I want to sell capital, and then moved my way into a director role. And I think got to that point and was like, I really had always had an entrepreneurial spirit and wanted to start my own thing. And 6 years ago, I started KLC Consulting and really took my marketing degree and just the, collection of experiences that I had and launched my business. And about a year and a half into that, I had a client who was a young plastic surgeon who was looking to really expand and build a non-surgical division and a wellness division. And he asked me to step in as a managing partner with him. And so I went from really the rep manager side, working with practices, to the side of running a practice. And I learned that hiring team and building really systems and processes in this small business, in particular, where the business owner is also the service provider, is very different than what I had learned on the corporate side. Yet I had a lot of experience to bring to the table over there. And I thought, gosh, there's a lot that I could offer to aesthetic practices at scale. And so about a year and a half ago, pre-COVID, I launched the Pop Aesthetic Leadership Academy. And I'm the founder of my company, KLC Consulting, and this academy where we really are on a mission to help aesthetic practices build deeply satisfying, lucrative, freedom-based businesses that stand the test of time, and really help these aesthetic providers learn how to run their business and learn what it's like, doing the things that maybe they hadn't learned the skills in medical school to do. And that's what I do today. So I have a team, and we're a virtual team and have clients all over the globe.
Well, that's a lot to unpack, Kaylee. I think I need to take a second and digest all that you just said, because there's a lot of stuff. But I find it interesting for people who have we say carry the bag, obviously. Those of you who are listening who are not a sales rep, we say that in our industry, you carry the bag. I think when you're in practices and you are selling them things, you get to see the good, bad, and the ugly. I can remember working for Galderma, selling filler and, Dysport and different things. And you would hear everything. You would hear things that would make you almost, your skin would crawl, and some of it, and then you'd be sad, you'd be happy, like all the emotions. And I come from a very corporate America background. I've worked for Walmart as a vendor, Fortune 1s, Fortune 5s, much like you did. And you see things and think, oh, if I could just bring you structure, or if I could just help you with this one little thing. And so I know that coming from a sales rep role, actually doing it yourself, like actually getting to see it come full circle, must be oddly satisfying. That's the word to use. But as I think about that, going into practices, how do people decide to work with you? You've done all these things and you're out there, pop leadership and different things. How does the practice say, gosh, I really think I should bring Kaylee on? Like, what is the moment in their mind that you tend to see is like, I need a second person to come in and look at this with fresh eyes and help me fix my business?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you say, is it gratifying carrying the bag and coming from the sales rep side? And I think I thought I knew more than I really knew, because you can quickly identify when you're working, let's say, with 150 practices, and you see the ones that are excelling versus the ones that are struggling. There's tactical things you can pinpoint when you walk in, or you can simply want to recommend simple marketing strategy, or if you only did this, or if you just fired Susie and got rid of the toxic energy in the place, the culture would change. And I think really what changed for me when I did the consulting, and really as my practice evolved on the consulting side, and I learned more about what was preventing these business owners from making these simple decisions that, of course, their Allergan rep probably told them 10 times, or their Galderma rep, hey, you should just do this. It's deeper. It's really about the core values of that business owner. It's about their philosophy. Sometimes they're bringing baggage from the past. I have PTSD because I've tried hiring people and I haven't found the right ones. And in many cases, our clients come to me once they've worked with consultants and they've done the done-for-you stuff. And they're like, I tried that and it didn't work. And I think the approach that we take is much more about, instead of going and getting you the fish and bringing you the solution, we're really teaching you how to fish. And so you'll see in a lot of the testimonial videos that our clients make, they're like, oh, Kaylee, she's going to kick your butt. I really challenge them. And it's sort of that point where it's like, okay, I'm finally ready to make my final transformation. And I particularly enjoy working with providers who also own their business. So they're the service providers, but there's this inflection point where they get to, I'm building my business, things are going well, and I'm charging as much as I can for services, and I have a full schedule. How do I grow from here? And that's where that owner has to change themselves, and they have to really shift the value that they have around them as being their business, their personal hands being their business, to really who they have become and who they can become as a CEO, and really building a lot of it around team. And so we look to work with people who have really core values in alignment with ours.
When you use the word advisor, like on your site, you have like strategic advisor. And I love the word advisor because consultant sounds, in many cases, as you know, there's a connotation to that that's not always positive, because to your point, they've gone through two other folks before they end up coming to you. They've already been burned, or they've thought they've wasted money, whatever else has happened. And I like this idea that you're really partnering with them along the whole journey, because to your point, as I look at practices, obviously we have, a few thousand in our system. There is this inflection point where they're doing it all themselves. They are the pie maker, the pie shop owner, the marketing person, the janitor. And like one day they look up and they say, we can't grow and I can't keep working this hard. I've got to scale to another person. People are like children. 1 is 1, 2 is a million. That second person coming on changes the business drastically. A second location might as well be a different universe or different planet. And I think we underestimate coming in as a sales rep, to your point, or even the outsider looking in, like, oh, it's just hiring another person. You have to onboard. You have to get them into your culture. Are they selling enough? Are you going to look at how their performance metrics look after the first quarter, make decisions to fire them? It becomes, as a person who runs a business every day, as you do, I look at things that are easy, quote unquote easy. And it's like, yeah, but I have a million of them. A million easy things is still a lot of hard stuff. And it's like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. So I hear what you're saying. And I think what you're offering is really important on the leadership side, because as you're talking about POP leadership, all the things they're doing on the leadership component, I think about people who are looking at business skills. Like they are married to, I've got to go out and learn finance and accounting and marketing, but you're focusing on the other part, sort of the higher level layer, to say, how do we lead our business? So take us through that part, because I feel like that's a place to soft skills, if you will, the intangibles that people forget to think about or invest in as they're learning on their entrepreneurial journey.
What's funny is the finance doesn't matter. Marketing doesn't matter. All of the things don't matter. How good your processes are do not matter if you don't have the skill sets to really make the right decisions in your business. You talk about all the things. Part of that is focus. And some of the things that we talk about are really building, it's not building a business, it's building an ecosystem. It's starting with who do you have on your team? Who do you want to work with? Who is worthy of supporting you in that process? Be it financing, be it marketing, and I think that it's not a matter of like these doctors are being taken advantage of. I think that there's just not enough education or, quite honestly, accountability for them, like a personal trainer, to say, look, it doesn't matter. All those things don't matter if you don't have the right people in place. If you don't have the right people and the right team to execute, it doesn't matter how good their resume is. Let's hire people and not hire for positions, right? And thinking about the bigger level strategy, and then helping them build their confidence. Because at the end of the day, to your point, Tiphany, it's like, I want them to learn how to be able to implement these strategies again and again. So it's not about making the $1 million. It's about learning and becoming the person who's capable of making $1 million again and again and again and again.
Well, that you just mentioned a thing again and again, resilience. I think one of the key traits of leadership is being resilient. I think COVID taught us all that you have to just get back up and keep going and get knocked down and keep going again. So you think about sort of that part of what you're doing with leadership. These guys go through a tremendous amount of uphill battles as a new practitioner who owns a business, right? Learning the business skills. You're crazy busy. Do you buy the lasers? Do you buy the products? You have reps knocking on your door. You have Instagram you've got to deal with, and you go all these trainings and conferences and things. It's a lot of stuff in the beginning. So as you think about a person coming in with a brand new practice, I'm brand new on day 4 and I'm going to start a practice. How does it differ for you, even looking at their practice in general, like the KPIs, the things that you care about, versus someone who is, 5, 10 years in thinking about, hey, Kaylee, I want to grow to another location. I want to get 10 times as big in the next 5 years. Kind of how does that set up in your mind to think about their own resilience, their own leadership, and kind of their own challenges that they have to face?
Yeah, that's such a dynamic question. So I think, first of all, to all the things, right? And the devices and the technologies, Aesthetic Record is an example. Phenomenal tool, right? But it's setting the strategy to be able to utilize that tool in your business, right? Same thing with the devices. And I would give the same advice to someone starting their business. And of course, the approach is different. But this is where our academy is called POP, Aesthetic Leadership Academy, which stands for Practice Optimal. And that's sort of insourcing your own approval and insourcing really the answers. Because we all have what we need, right? It probably already in your practice and the answers are there. So I think it's setting the stage for what you want in life. And one of our key philosophies, our core philosophies, is that your primary KPI should be pleasure. It should be your happiness.
Wait, hold on one second. Everyone, did you hear that? Let's just say that one more time, that the primary thing you should think about pleasure and happiness. Who has been happy in their business lately? Because it's not me. I'm so stressed I'm going to die. But that is a shocking thing, Kaylee. Everyone write that down.
Right. But that's the point. And that's what I'm hopeful to be able to teach really young entrepreneurs who are looking to start out. And you know what? I've been there and I've had to develop myself and learn sort of on my own path. And so I feel worthy of, giving this sort of advice on top of helping hundreds of clients achieve this. And I think that if we're only looking at the financial elements of our business, is that a healthy business? If you're running ragged, you don't have time for your family, you don't have time to travel, you don't have time to do things that you love. And that's different for everybody. Some people want to absolutely spend 100% of their time working in their business. So then the question is, okay, you want to be in your office from 8 to 10 every day, 7 days a week. Great. How do we help you make more money and do that? But I have yet to meet, or we have yet to work with a client who's come to me and said that. Most of the time, they're really thinking about how do I get to do what I love every day, but in a way that how do I become fulfilled and do these things, take care of my patients, make an impact, but also make money and build my financial wealth, my long-term wealth and my nest egg and my legacy, and build my autonomy and influence in the marketplace. And that starts with, what business do you want? How much do you want to work every day? And then we reverse engineer how to make that happen. Making money is easy when you have the strategy set in place. Then we plug all the rest in, right? So strategy, then we start to put the processes and all of the marketing and all of that stuff comes later. But it starts with being really clear about what your goals are and then learning how to implement, establish, and hold other people accountable to those as you move through your business and as you advance.
Well, we had an entrepreneur on a few weeks ago who started a med spa that's grown into a 5-location chain in a few years. She's like, Tiphany, if I could do it again, would I have done it? I don't know. I would have just worked in someone else's practice. It's so much work. She's actually going to talk about this at our conference. Like, having known what I know now, would I do the same thing again? I don't know the answer. Like, it's, hindsight's 2020. But it brings into the idea of what you're saying is like to love your business and to find joy in it and happiness in it and still keep doing it year after year. It grows and changes just like we do. Every year is a different year here for me at AR. I'm sure it's the same for you at KLC. So I'm learning that as well. But you're at our conference. You're going to be speaking at our conference on a workshop track and also on our business track. And your workshop that you're going to be giving for me is very compelling. I want to go sit in it because you talk about this idea of like high value activities and using your time, using your resources in a very specific way to grow your business. I am not good at that, Kaylee. I'm terrible. I want to do everything. So I'm like the worst delegator on planet Earth. If you guys know me, that's very true. But that part of what you're offering to me, if I took away nothing else from dealing with you, working with you, learning from you, would be, how do I find out as a practice owner, what is a high value activity? Because I think it's confusing. Is it my HR? Is it my device person coming in? Is it my event planning? What is a high value activity for me as a practice owner to make my business thrive long term?
Yeah, I mean, we can simply look at the numbers, and it's a matter of really defining what you enjoy doing as a provider and what brings the most revenue and how do you make that profitable for your business. And then you focus. And I think that's where a lot of people get distracted. They don't have the patience and the make one thing work and then move on to the next thing. And so they start trying another thing. And then it's sort of halfway doing all these different initiatives routinely. And this is, I've seen this with my corporate clients as well. It gets more challenging the bigger your business actually gets. But we're running this campaign and then this marketing and then we're going to introduce that device. And then, they said that there's demand for this. And at the end of the day, it's about staying focused. It's about identifying where can you absolutely make the most impact as a human. Most of the time, I see our clients fall off. It's, well, I want to oversee this and I'm going to actually, maybe I'll pick up the phone or I'm going to call every patient back or I'm going to, have my hands in all of the numbers the bookkeeping or things that could be delegated to people who could do those jobs that are lower value activities, right? Where you could be spending your time, if nothing else, putting content out, making YouTube videos, if it's not simply your hands-on patients. And so, so we have a process that we'll go through in this workshop to help you identify specifically, okay, how do we know what are high value activities? And once you have clarity, then you focus on those so that you can show up on the rested edge. And really, I'm big on state and how you talked about, I have too many things and I feel exhausted. And I think the best time for me when I'm most productive and when I see our clients being most productive, it's when they're in the state of this relaxed confidence. It's where they are really clear about what they want to accomplish. They show up, they know they have enough time for that. They're not overworking, they're not overcommitting themselves, and they're not under recovering. And that comes with staying really focused and clear on the things that you need to be doing, but also your guiding principles, what your mission, your vision, your values. And that's the stuff we're going to be talking about. And ultimately, by knowing those, look, I know that I am only going to work with people who fit within this or have this philosophy, right? And anybody else who comes into my ecosystem, let's use an example of someone that's like, I want a discount. Now, this is like an elementary example, but no, this is my value. This is what I'm going to charge. And if you're going to ask me for a discount, you're probably not somebody who's going to appreciate my brilliance and the work that I'm willing to do to help you achieve a result. And so we're not going to be the right fit together. And when you help your team understand who we work with, these are our goals, this is how we do things around here, and you're really staying committed to that and not squirrel, let's do that. Oh, well, let's add that device. Let's add this. Let's add that. Then you can set really clear boundaries around your time, around the way that you deliver services, around the way your expectations from patients and team. And then you feel more confident in the way you show up in your business and making decisions to guide and steer the business in the right direction. And that's, again, back to the leadership. So the workshop that I'm going to be teaching, it's 90-minute workshop to build your $1 million business confidence. And so that's really about getting focused, setting these boundaries, and then getting really clear on, the vision for your company, understanding the difference between what a vision and mission and values are, right? Because most of us, we write them down and someone's like, what are your core values? And we're like, hold on, let me go, let me dig up in the drawer. And none of the team knows, right? And so how can you hire a team in alignment with your values? You don't even know what the heck they are. And so that's what we're going to be working on at the workshop. And I think it'll be really valuable for everybody.
I totally agree. You said two things in there that sort of made me think a little bit deeper is, as I look at practices, your business, my business, any of our businesses, it's all unique. And I think we are so ingrained, even as a society, but for sure in our industry, to say, these are the metrics, period. Like, this is the litmus test. This is the ruler. This is the guide stick, period. Knowing that each practice has its own nuanced things, different geographies, different makeup, different services. And so I find that as I talk to clients, even in our business, they're comparing themselves to who they see on Instagram. I'm not as big as Lori Robertson. I'm not as big as Christian Subia. I'm like, but you're not in their practice. You're in a whole different world. You're in like Montana or you're in Atlanta. Of course you're not them. You don't want to be a trainer. You don't want to be an industry spokesperson. You're trying to just build a big business. Like, they're focusing on a different part of their world. So I think, to your credit, is saying we kind of like a squirrel butterfly, we get really distracted and start thinking about we should be doing everything perfectly. And a practice can't grow that way. No one can grow when they're trying to be great at every single thing and trying to beat the competitor and to be better than the person down the street who, again, is running a whole different business than you are. So you sort of have this mantra about really a category of one and focusing on the specific place where you thrive. How do you talk about differentiation from a branding perspective? How to find out, if you know your mission, vision, values, how do you go to market with that to make your patients, your community understand who that is or who you are?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, it comes down to your brand promise. And that is really the covenant that you're making to your client. So no matter what services you offer, no matter what products you have, no matter what retail you throw up on the shelf, it all comes down to what is the thing that we're going to promise? What's the solution that we're providing to the marketplace? I think a lot of practices, people get FOMO. They're like, oh, so-and-so is doing that. I'm going to do that now. And they think they have to have everything. And even some of the sessions that I teach on a regular basis that are tactical, right? Like building loyalty programs. And there's things we can implement in your business, but don't do it if you don't need it. If it doesn't make sense for your business model, you don't have to have everything, just because Sally Smith has that, right? And so part of it too, Tiffany, is just me personally, to help explain why I'm just so passionate about helping people really think out of the box and be disruptive, is that I always thought it was a weakness of mine. And since I was little, I always wanted to be different than other people. I remember I was playing soccer in college, and our school newspaper, they knew that I liked to write, and they asked me to write a column about our soccer team and competitive games that were coming up. And I wrote my first article, and we had lost. And it was like, oh, we want you to give some insight into like what's happening behind the scenes with the team. And I wrote an article called Finger Pointing or something to that effect. And it was like offense versus defense, and we're all pointing the finger at each other. And it was, my AD was like, what did you just write? Are you kidding me? No, you're supposed to write about the other team. You're not supposed to be writing about these things that are happening like that aren't really cool internally. And I'm like, but that's the truth. That's why we lost. We didn't lose because of our competition. We lost because of ourselves. And I thought that, of course, I thought I had a good story wrapped in there. And they're like, you know what? It's okay. You don't need to write the article, And that really carried into corporate, where I was like, I remember sitting around a table, and it wasn't the company, it was the leader again. And I remember sitting there when I first had been promoted into this director role, and I'm representing half the country for a brand new product line. And I had all these ideas, and it was like, speak when spoken to. You were not allowed to. It was complete groupthink. And I sat there like just feeling like, how could this be right? And I'm looking at these executives that just sit there like they're 2-year-olds. And I couldn't understand why. And it really had to do with how that meeting was being led. And I just felt like I can't put up with this. And I always thought it was a problem until I started meeting these doctors who were like, something's not right. The status quo is off. I don't like this model. I have been programmed to be in this agency, and I am a human. I don't have to do it this way. And so that's my calling, is for, if you're listening to this and you're like, that's me, there's a gap and it needs to be fixed. That is my magic, because that's who I am. And I think that that's where innovation happens. I think that's where growth happens. That's where creativity happens. And I think we need people that think differently. And so not everybody likes that, but I'm going for it. That's who I want to be, and that's who I want our clients to become.
Well, I love the authenticity of what you just said, because I have been vilified my entire life for being different. People, things they don't understand, they're scared of. We know this. I mean, look at people with brilliance and genius. People are scared of them because they're different. They're not the normal. And so, not that I'm one of those. Boy, I wish I was. But my point being that people who, when things are not easy to understand, they're scary and they back away. And so I think, to your point, the groupthink is a safe place to be, especially in a place that's growing so fast. Our industry is growing at an exponential, rapid, crazy rate. In 20 years, we have become a specialty bigger than those that have been around for hundreds of years. We have thousands of practitioners adding into our mix every single month, if you would, even maybe every single week. We're launching products like crazy. And so I think in many cases, to keep up with the speed of innovation of our industry as a group, people kind of snowball in all together. Like, well, if Kaylee says to do it for somebody else, it must be a good idea for me too. I think it's almost like a safe zone to be in. But to your point, there's a lot of danger in that. And as I see the people who are making a lot of strides in the industry, making waves, doing some disruptive things, their candle burns out far later in life because they keep doing things that are unique and different to get attention, to make themselves be relevant and add value to the industry, not be another Me Too thinker. And so I love the idea of like a category of one or a class of one, because every practice has a chance to totally change the game from their existing town, city, state, whatever it is. Well, just to your point, a few different things, go out on a limb a couple times, take a few crazy risks that are calculated, obviously educated decisions, but you can be a big disruptor in this industry because there is a tremendous amount of FOMO, or go with the flow, but go with whatever the charted territory is. What is it, Robert Frost, the path, when the path splits, to go the other way? Guys, listen to Kaylee, be different, be unique.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I have to give our industry credit too. The big manufacturers are really trying to provide a lot of support and help practices grow. But I think sometimes there's a saying I use, it's hard to see the label from inside the bottle. And I think sometimes people don't recognize, they don't know what their genius is or their differentiator factor. But when you work with somebody that we help them identify that and build strength and build confidence behind it and come out with just certainty and excitement about being who they are. I think sometimes they're like, I don't know what's different or not different. I'm just trying to keep up. I heard people want this, so I'm going to market this. And so we're really just teaching strategies, really back to becoming a leader in your business, but also a leader in your market by embracing and leaning in and focusing on those things that sort of make you off, that are a little different.
One of the things I think about when you say that is Groupon, and I won't go into like the hotbed of topics of Groupon, but there are practices who make Groupon a profit mecca. Like they have learned how to use it, how to upsell. It's a cost per acquisition for the practice. That's cheaper than going to pay-per-click. And they get CEOs, they get Fortune 1 leadership people to come in on Groupons all the time, and they're turning it into big money, big dollars. But then I hear people also say, Groupon's terrible. It's for the bargain basement practices. It's whatever you make it, right? Groupon is one of those examples. Like it is whatever you make it. If you want it to be that, you're going to niche it to that and make it that in your practice. If you want it to be an opportunity, you're going to make it that. Like it's whatever choice you want to make here. Is a glass half full or half empty? So I think we see this manifest itself in many ways. Even in my own business, I see things all the time that I'm like, gosh, Tiphany, you bonehead, you should have done this the right way in the beginning and not been so stubborn about it. And you would have made the mistake that you made. So I think we all do it. But to our industry credit with the manufacturers, I just want to hit on that really quickly. As a person who carried the bag, you don't get to differentiate. You're not allowed to do that from the FDA. You have to treat every single customer the same exact way, with the same messaging, the same opportunities, the same training. It has to always be the same. Like they have no choice but to do groupthink because that's what the FDA mandates. And so, as you know, a lot of our industry partners, they're in these practices every day. In many places in rural areas where there's not a lot of hustle and bustle, not a lot of Kayleys out there helping, and their only connection as a practice kind of to the bigger world is through their rep. So they're only seeing the world through the rep's eyes. They're not seeing it through what you and I might be seeing on this end, inside of the bottle, if you will. And so I think oftentimes because the rep is only allowed to do a certain amount of things and only allowed to help a certain amount of ways, it sort of cascades to practices that all kind of start to operate the same way because they're only seeing this same amount of information. So both good and bad for our manufacturers. But yeah, I think there's definitely a part of that that's from the manufacturing perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I can tell you, I'm a relationship person. I honor and respect the relationships that I have been able to build on the corporate side. And I will candidly have conversations with my rep and manager friends with those frustrations. Like, look, there's only so much I can do. My hands are tied. We can only say so much and help so much. And I mean, that's what's so great about what you're doing with Aesthetic Next and so many, providers who are offering out of the box trainings and teaching what they do. And I think we can all come together and really pay it forward. And that's my goal in our Leadership Academy, is to build a community of like-minded people who want to live big and want the space to be able to do that, want to be around people who are going to lift them up and give them that space to just, if you can think it, let's help you make it happen.
Okay, leader, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this interview with Dr. Tiphany Hall, and really take this next week to think about how you can begin to create some separation for yourself in the marketplace by using profits as fuel for your company growth versus using your time, and how you can create a new model for success that catapults your business into a category of 1. I'll catch up with you next week for part 2 of Category of 1 Clarity. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.